Ha! If you can even afford a room here, I'll quit my job. The lobby went still. Chandelier light on polished stone. Phones hovered. A cough died halfway. "I'd like a standard room," the man said. Soft, even. Kendra smiled like a blade. "Standard? Here? Sir, this is a flagship property. We don't do standard." She angled the rate sheet so the waiting line could see. "Tonight's rate is premium, plus deposit, plus incidentals." He nodded once. "That's fine. Card." She held out her hand without looking at him, eyes on the PMS screen. "And ID, if you have one." He set a credit card and a driver's license on the marble. The card's edge was worn. The license photo was older. He kept his hands visible. A couple near the stanchions whispered into a phone. "He's not staying here," the woman said. The man angled their camera toward the desk. Kendra slid the card into the EMV terminal. "Pre-authorization at the highest tier," she announced, voice loud enough for the line. "To spare everyone from any confusion." He said nothing. "Any luggage?" she added, already typing. "Any reason you look like you came in from a bus depot?" "No," he said. "Just a night." She clicked through fields. "And you understand our policies on damages, smoking, and behavior?" A quick up and down over his coat. "We maintain standards." He nodded again. The security guard shifted closer, hands clasped. The CCTV dome hummed faintly above. Kendra leaned on the counter. "You know what happens when a card declines at this level? We put a note in the system. Other properties see it, just so there's transparency." She smiled at the waiting guests. "We believe in transparency." He breathed once, calm, eyes steady. The bellhop, a student badge tucked under his lapel, took a step forward. "Ma'am." He stopped when she flicked two fingers. "Not now, Noah." She kept her gaze fixed on the man. "Sir, you're asking us to take a risk. You don't look like a guest who respects this brand." "I respect it," he said. "Do you?" She tapped the terminal with a manicured nail. "Because this place isn't a shelter. It's a 5-star. We protect it." The couple's phone caught the red glow from the desk lamp. "Get closer," the woman whispered. Kendra angled the rate sheet again, pinning it with the pre-auth slip. "See these numbers? These are what real guests pay without complaint. Tonight we're going to find out if you belong in that list." He looked at the marble, at his own worn leather folio, at her hand over the terminal. "Any final words?" she asked, "before we do the adult part?" He lifted his eyes. "No." "Great." Her smile sharpened. She lifted the card. "Let's prove you can even afford one night." Kendra didn't lower her voice. "Oh," she said, drawing it out like theater. "That's unfortunate. Must be a daily limit situation, or maybe just a life limit situation." Laughter cracked from the influencer's phone speaker. Elias didn't move. She held up the printed decline slip. "For transparency purposes," she announced to the lobby, "this gentleman attempted a 5-star authorization and did not meet the minimum threshold." The influencer whispered into her mic, "He actually tried his card. This is wild. Watch her post it." Click. Kendra taped the slip onto his leather folio right across the center, covering the embossed initials. Bellhop Noah stepped forward again. "Ms. Sloan, maybe just try step back," she snapped, eyes never leaving Elias. "We're not a charity. We don't let people pretend in here." Security shifted closer, arms crossed now. Official. Elias kept his eyes on the counter. Kendra grabbed the rate sheet, flicked it open dramatically. "This," she said, waving a manicured finger over the page, "is tonight's entry-level rate, the lowest we offer. It's 3 times minimum wage for a single night." She angled the sheet outward so the phones could catch it. "Sir," she said, "these are numbers for paying guests, not drifters hoping for a miracle." Another beep from her terminal as she typed. "Let's see what's really in your bank, shall we?" Bellhop Noah spoke carefully. "Ma'am, the manual override," she cut him off. "Manual override is for corporate tier or above. This is," she gestured loosely at Elias, "not corporate tier." The influencer zoomed in on Elias's shoes. Look at the soles, creased. He probably walked here. Kendra leaned in. There's a budget lodge 2 blocks over. No card needed if you pay by the hour. A ripple of laughter. Someone said, try the one with the blue neon sign. Still no reaction. Her tone turned surgical. Unless you'd like me to run the premium suite rate instead. That's an even faster way to prove whether you're misrepresenting yourself. He looked directly at her for the first time. Silent. She blinked, misreading the stillness as shame. All right, then. She hit the terminal again. We're doing the premium authorization. Let's see if this card can survive reality. The terminal whined, processing, waiting. Phones hovered in the air. Beep. Declined. Gasps. Laughter. One voice. Second strike. Kendra's smile hardened. Sir, she said, voice thick with triumph, your methods are exhausted. You can leave or be escorted. Those are your options. She slid the folio toward him, the decline slip taped to it like a label. You do not belong here. He reached for the folio, and every breath in the lobby paused, waiting to see if this was the moment he gave up, or the moment everything changed. Bellhop Noah stepped forward again, voice lowered but urgent. Sir, if you leave now, they'll say you never even tried. His eyes weren't pitying, they were pleading, as if this moment mattered more than a room. Kendra folded her arms. You've had every chance. Time to clear the lobby. She looked to security. Escort him out if he doesn't walk. Phones lifted again, some recording out of cruelty, some out of curiosity. A thin line formed between silence and spectacle. Elias didn't argue, didn't defend himself. He simply rested his fingertips on the worn leather folio, its edges frayed, the embossed initials barely visible beneath the taped decline slip. Noah's voice trembled now, barely above a whisper meant for him alone and for everyone watching. If this were you, humiliated in front of strangers, would you walk away quietly, or make this the last time anyone underestimates you? The whisper cut through the room like a note held on the edge of breath. Every eye locked on Elias's hand as he slowly lifted the folio, and the room held its breath, waiting to see which kind of man he was. The rain hadn't started yet in the memory, only a gray hush over a quiet street cafe 3 towns back. Elias sat alone at a table set for 2. The other chair remained untouched, angled slightly outward, the way his wife always sat, as if ready to greet the world. In front of him lay a folded newspaper obituary, creased so many times the ink had softened. Grace Margaret Ward, 62, beloved philanthropist. The rest of the text blurred. He didn't need to read it. He had memorized every line. He reached for the worn leather folio, the same one now sitting under fluorescent lobby lights miles ahead in time, and opened it to a handwritten itinerary. Each destination was written in his wife's delicate handwriting, the looping script fading in places. Some were crossed off, some circled with care. Tonight's hotel was circled twice. He traced the ink with his thumb. Narration slipped inward, slowing, the way breath catches when memory meets purpose. Grace had never cared for luxury. She cared for places with stories, places where staff were treated as part of the legacy, not the labor. The hotel where Elias now stood had once been such a place, before new ownership stripped it of soul and turned it into a monument of exclusion. A wedding program slid from the folio, worn soft with time. The cover read, "In celebration of service, not of status." Their vows had been a promise to build, to uplift, to restore dignity wherever they could. When Grace fell ill, she made Elias vow he would finish what they started, not as a king, but as a witness to people's true hearts. "See how they treat you when they don't know your name," she had whispered in the hospital room. "Then decide if our work is done." He hadn't spoken since she passed, not truly spoken, with conviction or purpose. Not until tonight. He closed the folio in that memory, And when he lifted his eyes, he was no longer in the cafe. He was back in the lobby. A taped decline slip covered his wife's initials. And the vow he made was no longer a memory. It was beginning. Behind the memory of grief stood something else, architecture and ambition, quietly reshaping the world, name withheld by choice. The image shifted to a long oak conference table. Men in tailored suits argued over collapsing revenue projections, voices tight with panic. A presentation glowed on the wall. Ward Endowment Proposal, Asset Recovery Initiative. At the far end, Elias sat in silence, hands folded, eyes on a single page, a staff severance list. The chairman slammed a fist against the table. If we don't liquidate 3 properties by Monday, we default. Thousands of employees, gone. Elias finally spoke. One sentence. We will not liquidate. Heads snapped toward him. We buy, he said simply. All of it. A stunned pause, then chaos. You'd take on that debt? At your age? This isn't a hobby shop. It's a billion-dollar hole. Your own advisors said. Elias slid a document across the table. A fully funded acquisition plan, interest rates negotiated, philanthropic clauses embedded. Every page bore the letterhead of a trust the board had only heard rumors about. Ward Endowment Foundation. Narration deepened. This wasn't about profit. Every acquisition contract contained one immutable clause in Elias's handwriting. No employee earning under management tier may be terminated in cost-saving measures. Instead, implement scholarship advancement programs for frontline staff. We glimpse one of those scholarship recipients, a maid in her early 20s, tears streaming as she holds a full-ride acceptance letter to a hospitality management school. Behind her, Elias's silhouette at the back of the ceremony, not speaking, not introduced, simply watching. Then another scene. A blueprint unrolled across a drafting table, the edges curled. At the bottom corner, the initials EW in precise ink, not visible to the public, but embedded in the design of lobbies across the country, soft entry lighting, low reception desks, so guests and staff would stand at equal eye level. The philosophy was always the same. Restore dignity first, profit follows. In a quiet room above a restoration site, Elias stood at a window looking down at construction crews. No fanfare, no legacy plaque bearing his name. Only a worn photo of Grace taped to the glass beside him. Her voice echoed in memory. We don't build monuments. We build places where people remember they matter. Back in the present, the taped decline slip on his folio was more than insult. It was a test. And every place that failed that test had already been marked for reclaiming. He didn't dream of the hotel as it was tonight, bright, cold, polished into sterility by corporate hands. He remembered it as it used to be, a softer place, where his wife had once stood at the mezzanine railing, eyes alight, watching a porter help an elderly woman with gentleness that couldn't be trained, only felt. Grace squeezed his hand and whispered, "See? This is what hospitality was born to be. A sanctuary, not a showroom." That was 5 years before her diagnosis. Now the memory hung in the air like the dust motes in that golden light. Elias sat alone in a train compartment weeks after her funeral, the rhythmic clatter of tracks like a heartbeat that didn't belong to him. Across from him, in the window's reflection, he saw not age, but absence. He opened their travel journal, a thick, leather-bound book marked with decades of ink. It wasn't filled with destinations. It was filled with people's names. The maid in Houston who sang hymns at night because she missed her children in Trinidad. The front desk trainee in Denver who slept in his car while saving for classes. The bellhop in Baltimore who was dismissed after being told he didn't look 5-star enough. A boy Grace had insisted on sponsoring. Every name had one thing in common. They stayed in the margins because nobody in power ever saw them. Grace saw them all. On the last page she ever wrote in, her handwriting trembled, but her words did not. If you finish this alone, let the world reveal itself to you first, not as the owner, as the overlooked. Only then will you know which places still deserve us." He pressed his forehead to the journal's spine and exhaled grief into determination. The hotel circled twice in her handwriting was the one she said hurt the most to lose. It had once been a refuge. Now it was a test. This wasn't about buying a building. This was about deciding whether her legacy would live or end here. Tonight, in that lobby, surrounded by sneers and cameras, the moment had arrived. And every heartbeat he suppressed was a countdown, not to vengeance, but to restoration. The window of memory receded, replaced by a quiet hotel suite from months earlier, one that Elias had rented anonymously, overlooking the very block where he now stood. There were no suitcases, no entourage, just a single table and a sealed document packet resting at its center beneath a beam of late-afternoon sun. The packet was marked, "Escrow Instruction. Do not activate without personal authorization. Beneficiary, Ward Endowment Trust. Founders, Grace M. Ward and Elias J. Ward." His hand hovered over it then, as it hovered over the folio now, suspended between grief and purpose. Narration held a heartbeat. The packet contained right of first refusal, ROFR, giving Elias the legal option to purchase not only the hotel, but the entire commercial block at a predetermined rate. Share purchase agreement, pre-signed by the franchise board, waiting only for his counter-signature to finalize transfer. Escrow release code set to initiate a wire from the endowment's legacy account, an account Grace had established specifically for acts of reclamation. He had not touched the packet since the day she was buried. Instead, he had carried it with him like a vow. He remembered the email from the franchise president. "Mr. Ward, your silence is understood, but the market clock is expiring. If you intend to proceed with acquisition, the escrow must be activated within the next quarter." He hadn't replied. He had been waiting, not for timing, but for truth. Would this place reveal itself as one worth saving or condemning? Grace's handwritten note lay atop the documents, edges worn soft. "Don't save places, save people." Now, back in the present, fluorescent lobby lights glinted off the edge of the sealed packet inside his folio. The decline slip taped over it fluttered from the lobby's air conditioning draft, thin, temporary, meaningless. The voices around him began to fade beneath the weight of a single, rising certainty. This lobby had just decided its own fate. Elias closed the folio with quiet finality, and in the silence that followed, every voice in the lobby seemed to fade, because the moment they had just created was about to decide everything. The incident report form hit the counter with a slap, the sound crisp enough to turn every head. Kendra didn't lower her voice, not even slightly. "Full documentation," she announced. "We need this recorded in case property loss occurs during removal." She clicked a pen and began writing across the top of the form. Trespasser refused to vacate. Security took one step forward. Manager Chen hovered behind the desk, trying to smile at the watching guests, every muscle in his face pulled tight. "Let's handle this quietly, Kendra." "There's nothing quiet about fraud," she said, eyes locked on Elias. "We have policies. He failed payment. He stays. It's loitering. Potential criminal trespass." The influencer turned the camera on herself. "Happening now. Man refuses to leave hotel lobby. Security is about to remove him." Elias didn't speak. Kendra lifted the phone receiver. "I am notifying local authorities we have a non-compliant individual." Bellhop Noah stepped forward again, hands partially raised, not in defiance, but warning. "Miss Sloan, please! There might be a system error." His card. "There is no error." She pointed the pen at two other guests. "Everyone saw the declines. This is textbook manipulation. He thinks if he waits long enough, we'll feel sorry for him." Murmurs rippled behind velvet stanchions. "He doesn't look harmless to me." "People like this cause scenes just to sue later. He's playing the age card. Or he's delusional." Manager Chen tapped the desk. We don't need police. We need him to exit. He turned to Elias, soft voice, practiced corporate calm. Sir, if you leave voluntarily, this won't be noted on your record. Record. The word hung in the air. Noah clenched his jaw. Sir has not raised his voice. He hasn't resisted. There's no cause to... Kendra snapped. Step back, Noah. Her eyes returned to Elias, cold, certain of victory. I am giving you 60 seconds to pick up your belongings and walk out that door, she said. After that, security escorts you out. If you resist, you will be arrested and permanently blacklisted from our properties. She placed the incident form directly in front of Elias, face up, her handwriting large and confident. Reason for removal. Unable to afford room. Attempted deception. The pens clicked. Phones rolled. Every second held its breath, waiting for his retreat. He did not retreat. He placed one hand over the folio, not to protect it, as if preparing to open it. And something in the room, however faint, shifted. The PMS system pinged, a sharp electronic tone that sliced through the tension. Night Auditor Ms. Patel frowned at the monitor. Lines of account metadata scrolled in front of her, one field blinking amber. Authorization source, corporate tier, masked ID. That field didn't appear for regular guests. She leaned closer. Ms. Sloan, she said carefully, this attempted reservation is linked to a corporate oversight profile. The system is requesting an override PIN. Kendra didn't turn. That field triggers whenever someone enters random numbers to look official. It's a scam detection protocol. It's not a scam code, Ms. Patel insisted. Her voice was low, but the mic above the desk amplified it through the lobby. It's a concealed ownership tier. This is unusual. The influencer zoomed in on the screen, catching a partial code before Kendra slammed her hand over the display. Recording the screen is a violation of property privacy, she snapped. The influencer smirked. Funny how privacy matters now. Manager Chen stepped forward, whispering urgently, Should we call corporate before we proceed? Kendra scoffed. Corporate? Over a declined card? He's stalling. People like this prey on hesitation. Then she turned to Elias, performing again. How long are you going to drag this out, sir? Do you think if you stand here quietly, someone will feel sorry enough to let you stay in a 5-star hotel for free? He said nothing. Security adjusted his stance. Hands lowered toward the radio, clipped to his belt. Kendra grabbed the override PIN envelope from the drawer and waved it at Ms. Patel. This is for real members, not imposters. Stop entertaining fantasies. Noah spoke up again, louder than before. Ms. Patel is right. That code. I've only seen it once. On a briefing about properties transitioning ownership under executive consolidation. The lobby stirred. Ownership? Transition? Kendra shot him a glare sharp enough to peel paint. Stop spreading rumors! This man doesn't own a toothbrush in this hotel, let alone... Ping! The system refreshed. A line appeared on screen. Authorization pending. Ward Endowment Holdings. Masked. Miss Patel's breath caught audibly. Kendra froze mid-sentence. The influencer's live stream chat exploded. Ward? Hold on, isn't that... Google it. Security hesitated, eyes flicking between the man and the screen. Elias remained perfectly still, hand resting lightly on the folio. The room wasn't laughing anymore. They were recalculating. And in their sudden silence, prestige began to take shape. Kendra no longer raised her voice. She didn't need volume. She had certainty. She slid the decline slip back toward Elias with slow precision, lining it up perfectly with the edge of the counter, as if framing a final exhibit. This establishment, she said, each word measured, is not obligated to entertain fantasies. You attempted payment. You failed. You remained. That is trespass. Security stepped closer, not aggressively, professionally, the kind of presence that assumes compliance. Manager Chen stood by silently, hands clasped, eyes down. He had already made his decision. Optics over empathy. Kendra lifted a pen and a resignation acknowledgement form, setting it beside the folio. You claimed you could afford our lowest room. You cannot. If you wish to challenge this termination of service, you may do so through our legal department. Her tone made clear how pointless that would be. The lobby was silent, not mocking now, but watching, believing this was the final break. They had seen this story before, a man out of place, a system reaffirming its hierarchy. Elias did not blink. Kendra tapped the folio. Remove your belongings from our property within 30 seconds. If you do not move, security will escort you out. Any attempt to re-enter will result in legal action. Security reached toward Elias's elbow, polite, firm, ready. Elias placed his hand on the taped decline slip, and instead of pushing the folio away, he pulled it toward himself. The motion was small, but every eye registered it. Kendra's jaw tightened. Sir, leaving is the only dignified option you have left. He didn't answer. Instead, with absolute calm, he lifted the corner of the taped slip, revealing the edge of a sealed legal packet underneath. Not desperation, documentation. And the atmosphere shifted, quietly, like air tightening before a storm. Manager Chen's phone buzzed before security could make contact. The sound was sharp, insistent, not the tone of a personal call, but a priority alert. He glanced at the screen and went still. Franchise escrow, code action required. Before he could speak, Elias opened the folio. No hesitation now. He peeled away the tape decline slip as if removing a sticker from glass, exposing the sealed legal packet beneath it, embossed with the crest of the Ward Endowment Trust. The embossed seal caught the lobby light. Ms. Patel covered her mouth. Kendra's voice broke its smooth veneer. What is that? Elias didn't answer her. Instead, he slid the packet across the desk, not toward her, but toward the manager. The motion was the shift. The atmosphere turned kinetic. Manager Chen's hands trembled as he opened the packet and pulled out the first document. Right of first refusal. Executed. Asset. Parcel A. Hotel plus commercial block. Buyer of record. Ward Endowment Trust. Signatory authority. Elias J. Ward. A hush. Then disbelief rippled through the lobby like electricity. Kendra laughed once, too loud. This is fake. A stunt. Corporate paperwork doesn't just... But Chen was no longer listening. He was dialing the number on the document, hitting speakerphone. 1 ring, 2, then a composed voice answered. Escrow operations, please state your authorization code. Chen looked at Elias. Elias spoke for the first time in full, steady voice. Not loud, but absolute. Code 7 Alpha 6. Initiate transfer for final acquisition. The auditing clerk gasped. On the line, the voice responded without pause. Confirmed. Releasing funds now. Ownership transfer in progress. Phone stopped recording. People began realizing they had not been watching a spectacle. They had been witnessing a takeover. The speakerphone chimed, a high crystalline tone that cut through the air as the voice returned. Funds are released. Transfer confirmed. Parcel A is now under Ward Endowment Trust. Congratulations, Mr. Ward. The words didn't land. They detonated. The influencer's phone slipped from her hand and hit the marble with a crack. Someone gasped out loud, not a soft intake of breath, but a sound pulled from the bottom of their lungs. The lobby moved, not forward but backward, as bodies instinctively stepped away from the man they had dismissed. On the PMS screen, the booking status refreshed in real time. Primary owner, Ward. Elias J. Executive OWARD enabled. Ms. Patel staggered back from the terminal as if she'd touched a live wire. Security froze mid-motion, hand hovering inches from Elias's arm, no longer escorting him, now desperately avoiding contact, as though touching him might cost his job. Kendra's lips parted, but no words came out. Her polished facade didn't crack. It shattered. "This is impossible," she whispered. A new printer began spitting out confirmation pages, wire receipt, ownership notice, executive control documents, all bearing his name, time-stamped 8:47 p.m., the exact moment she'd tried to eject him. Manager Chen read aloud, voice trembling. Control of the hotel and surrounding properties transferred to Ward Endowment Trust upon final wire. His eyes lifted to Elias, face draining. Sir, you are now the owner. Phones lifted again, but not to mock, to capture history. Every person in the lobby had just become a witness. Elias did not look at them. He simply extended one hand toward the room key encoder, silent, expectant. A request not for permission, but for acknowledgement. Suddenly, the question hanging in the air wasn't, can he afford a room? It was, what happens now to everyone who thought he couldn't? The lobby had gone silent once before, but now it shattered. Kendra's hands shook. Her polished nails dug into the counter as if she could claw herself back into authority. This isn't possible, she stammered, voice breaking, pitch rising uncontrollably. The words sounded smaller than the gasps around her. Security froze, unsure whether to intervene or simply watch. Their stance slackened, the strict protocol evaporating in the face of sheer disbelief. The influencer's phones swayed in midair, recording every second. But now the commentary stopped. Even her voice betrayed awe. I can't believe this, she whispered. Manager Chen swallowed hard, fumbling with the owner badge in his hands. The letters on the PMS screen glowed like a spotlight. Primary owner, Ward, Elias J. The realization rippled through the crowd. Bellhop Noah's eyes widened. He instinctively took a half-step forward, then froze. Onlookers murmured among themselves, voices trembling. He owns the property? This was the man we were mocking? Kendra's breath hitched. Her professional mask crumbled into raw, unguarded panic. The audience could see it. The rigid posture, the perfectly rehearsed authority, evaporated in seconds. Every person watching now understood that her world had just collapsed. Elias remained still, composed, almost serene. He didn't gloat. He didn't smile. He extended a hand toward the room key encoder, calm, as if the act itself was the only acknowledgement needed. A clerk began printing wire confirmation pages. Their rapid hum echoed in the room like a drumbeat, punctuating Kendra's unraveling. Pages landed across the counter, ownership confirmations, escrow release receipts, executive authorizations, all stamped and time-marked 8:47 p.m. Gasps, murmurs, whispers. Lobby guests shuffled back, phones lowering, faces pale. Even those who had mocked him moments before now looked unsure where to place their shock. Kendra's knees went slack. She sank slightly toward the chair behind the desk, clinging to the counter as her voice broke again. No one finished the sentence, because in that moment, the room understood. Every insult, every dismissal, every smirk directed at him had been not only wrong, they had been powerless against the truth. Elias picked up the encoded keycard and paused. All eyes followed. The handover wasn't a threat. It wasn't triumph. It was the quiet declaration of a world turned right. And the crowd exhaled collectively, still stunned, still witnessing, still alive in the moment before everything that followed. The lobby had not moved for a heartbeat, and then it did, slowly, as if the air itself had shifted. Elias opened the second packet, larger, heavier, embossed in gold. The ground lease for the entire block. Every guest-facing retail property, every adjoining cafe, every parking lot, all under the Ward Endowment Trust. Kendra's eyes widened. She stepped back, catching on to the scope, but it was too late. Every movement in the lobby had slowed, measured by disbelief. Manager Chen swallowed and tried to speak. Sir, that means... Elias didn't answer. He handed her a dedication program, glossy, official, with Grace Ward's name on the cover. Read it, he said quietly. His voice was calm, but it carried a weight that made the room lean in. She opened the program, voice shaking. This hotel and its adjoining properties are rededicated under the name of Grace Ward, whose vision was to restore dignity and opportunity to every guest and employee, regardless of background. Her breath hitched. The words sank in. Every front desk clerk, every onlooker, every camera recording absorbed the revelation. This was not simply a transaction, this was legacy. Noah's jaw dropped. He glanced at Elias, then back at the printed list of names. Employees who had been quietly uplifted, scholarships granted months ago, lives changed before anyone here knew. Kendra's posture collapsed. She gripped the counter like a lifeline, mouth opening and closing, trying to find authority, trying to reclaim control, but it was gone. Elias stepped forward, not to gloat, but to extend calm assurance. You thought you were guarding this place from people like me, but this place was built for people like you to rise. The lobby was silent except for the printer, still spitting confirmations. Influencers, staff, and guests alike felt the collective weight. Every insult, every mockery, every assumption of inferiority had been answered, not with words, but with immutable truth. Phones hovered in midair, faces drained of color. Even the most skeptical observer knew. This was no ordinary man, and no ordinary evening. Every eye was now on Elias. The folio open, the packets revealed. The first twist was complete, but the double twist, the true depth of legacy, was still waiting, and the room collectively realized nothing would ever feel the same again. The lobby remained frozen for a heartbeat, and then whispers began, soft, incredulous, spreading like a ripple. Elias didn't speak. He walked slowly to the front desk keycard encoder, picked up a blank sleeve, and placed it deliberately on the counter. His hand hovered above it for a moment, steady, controlled, commanding the room without a single word. Kendra swallowed, voice quivering. I was only... He did not answer. Instead, he gestured toward Noah, the bellhop who had quietly advocated for him. Your scholarship. First recipient Noah's eyes widened. The room noticed. The lift in his chest, the tremor of disbelief. Staff murmured in awe. The printed wire receipts, escrow confirmations, and trust documentation still littered the counter. Every proof bore his name, stamped and time-marked. Every witness could read it. The man they had mocked controlled everything, and yet he acted with restraint, not malice. Kendra's fingers fumbled with a pen. I don't understand this. A manager quietly handed her the training enrollment forms, subtly underlining the expectation. She would participate in service excellence courses, witness the dedication ceremony, and understand the standards she had derided. The crowd exhaled audibly, a collective acknowledgement that humiliation had shifted. No one laughed. No one mocked. The reversal was not a spectacle. It was justice made tangible. Elias finally released the folio, placing it on the counter with precision. His gaze scanned the lobby once, absorbing reactions. Awe, shame, hope, gratitude. The room itself seemed to realign. Even the influencer lowered her phone, filming only to document the event with newfound reverence. Comments went silent. No one could interrupt the moral gravity. A few staff members gathered around the dedication program. Each realized the scholarship fund, the renovations, the endowment, all carried Grace Ward's name. A quiet understanding passed between them. This was not about wealth. It was about legacy, dignity, and justice. Kendra's shoulders slumped. The color drained from her face. The professional mask she had worn so tightly moments ago was gone. She read the plaque on the counter aloud, tremor in her voice. To restore dignity and opportunity to every guest and employee, regardless of background. Elias didn't correct her. He only observed. Silence spoke louder than any word could, and the lobby collectively understood. Every insult, every assumption of inferiority, every attempt to dominate had been met with quiet authority, now undeniable. The lobby remained quiet, every eye on Elias, waiting, aware that his silence carried more truth than any words could convey. Elias stepped into the suite. The soft carpet muted his footsteps. A single lamp cast a warm circle of light over the desk where a photograph of Grace sat, edges worn from decades of handling. He set the dedication program next to her frame, the print crisp, the ink reflecting the gentle glow. Outside, the city lights flickered through the window, and a soft rain began to fall, tapping against the glass in a steady rhythm. He reached for the keycard sleeve, embossed with her initials, and held it loosely in his hand. It was more than a token. It was a reminder, a promise kept, a legacy honored. For a moment he looked out over the block, now fully under his care, seeing the lobby below where staff and guests were quietly rearranging their understanding of dignity, power, and respect. And in that private moment he spoke softly, not for anyone else, but to the memory of his wife. If dignity is the only thing you leave behind in this world, will they remember you for what you owned, or how you treated those who had nothing? The words lingered, unfinished, carrying weight beyond the room, beyond the block, beyond even him. He placed the program down, hands resting lightly on the folio, and gazed toward the window again. Outside, the rain fell, relentless but cleansing, just as the evening had been. Silence filled the room, but it was not empty. It was charged, reflective, and alive with the moral echo of every action that had led to this moment. The story did not close. It only asked the question, who carries dignity forward from here?